Matthew Baber, and I interviewed Wayne Goodwill.
Cultural background, so Dakota?
I'm Dakota Sioux.
Okay. And your profession, what did you do as a job?
Well, most of my life I was a band counselor.
Okay.
And I spent a couple of years as a chief. And I'm a traditional artist.
Okay. I understand you drive bus too?
Yes, I drive a bus.
This is the office for Jordan Inglass.
I drive bus, and I used to part-time farm.
Part-time farming.
I drove bus for 39 years.
So, okay, can you tell me about your youth while you're growing up in Stanley Buffalo and how it influenced you as an adult?
Yeah, I was...
Delaney Goodwill, can I get you to come to the office for me, please?
I was born January 27th, 1941, and I grew up right on my dad's farm on Standing Buffalo First Nation. And when I was in the fall of 46, I was going to turn 7 in the winter, so I went to residential school.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I was an active kid. I learned how to snare rabbits. I helped my dad clean the barn. I used to go out and clean barns while he went and water horses. And in fact, I enjoyed my youth life. I did a lot of wrecking of my mother's carriages and made wagons out of them, the wheels. Yeah. And yeah, I learned a lot. My grandfather had a big thrashing machine, and he used to go around thrashing, and my dad was one of the workers with him, mechanics. They had to keep that big tractor going, and thrashing machine. So I used to go along with him some days and watch them all work in a community. And each band family members had about 60 to 100 acres to thrash, so they had only one thrashing machine, so they used to go around, yeah. And I went to residential school for 5 years. And
Can I get you to come to the office, please?
1953, 52, they made a new school on the reserve, and they couldn't finish, so a number of us didn't go to school because they had the Labret school was already filled, and there was about 6 to 8 boys from our reserve that couldn't attend school because they're already filled. So we had to stay out till the following fall.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of my traditions and speaking and that with my parents and my grandparents. And we used to go to Wood Mountain. My mother was a Lakota from the Wood Mountain First Nation. It's a Sitting Bull band. And I used to spend a lot of my time over there when I was a young fella. We used to travel over there in the summer and with my dad, and we used to go to the rodeo and take part in some sporting events. My dad used to be a good ball player. And he played for the colored team that used to be come and play up north here because they weren't allowed to play in the major league in the United States. So they played in Estevan, and one day they spotted my dad as a good player, and they wanted him to pitch for them. So he joined them and got paid. They got paid touring around the country, going to Alberta and parts of the northern Saskatchewan, Estevan, Malville, Yorkton. All these towns had senior ball teams.
Yeah.
So that's where my dad went, and I stayed home with my mother, and we sort of looked after the place and farm in the summer, and then I'd go back to residential school. But then after I came home, they made a school, and then we all attended day school.
On
You know,
the reserve?
on reserve. I went up to grade 8, part of grade 8, and my dad had a lot of work, so I thought I'd help him. And I told him I want to quit, and he said, well, if you quit, it's going to be a tough go because, you know, people need education nowadays.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'll chance it. So I did. And we did, he had a construction of making stone walls along the lake, so I went and helped him there. And he had, winter time, we'd fish. Commercial fish. You had a commercial fishing down in the lakes down there, and we had 1,000 yards of net. We used to set right across the lake from one end to the other, and we used to pull them all day long. And we sold tons of them. And that was my experience of working. And I did a lot of hunting on my own. I bought a rifle, and I did a lot of deer hunting. And from my mother and dad, I was the oldest of the family, and there was 12 of us in the family. So that's one of the reasons why I quit school. I helped my family, yeah. So I got interested in all that, and I got acquainted with the Parks Department in Fort Capel, and I worked there for one winter. And here. The boss of the fish culture station wanted me to work for him. So I went over there and I worked in seasonal first year. And in the winter time I went in one winter there. I went and worked in Winnipeg with my cousin. We were building Pioneer grain annexes. Yeah. So we built annexes in the winter and put them all up and side them and did the roofs and everything, and we did one in Port of La Prairie, and that was the last one I did, and I came home, and I was about 18. I went to work with the government of Saskatchewan under the fisheries branch, and I wanted to be a game warden. That's what I wanted to be. But I worked with the fisheries, and I knew some of the wardens there that used to come and pick up fish and that. And I said, boy, I like to work with you guys. Well, he said, you got to go to school and get education in fish culture. So I said, oh, yeah, I guess I could. And they told me I had to have grade 10. So I found out I didn't qualify, so I told the RCM town police in Fort Capel, his son was my buddy, he was about your age, and I told him, I wanted to go to school so I can become a game warden. He said, oh, I'll tell my dad. So we talked to old Ian, and here he managed to go to the Indian Affairs, and he found out there was a school for young people, upgrading. So I went there, and they put me in that. So I went and lived in Regina for a year, and did some upgrading. And then when I was working at a hatchery, I used to do help with the plumbing. So I figured, well, I'll take up plumbing as a trade right in the city, because they wanted us to do some training in the city. So I took up plumbing.
So that's how you started becoming a plumber?
Yeah, I got a 6 months journeyman's, and then I went back to Fort Capel, and here my boss wanted me to work again. As soon as I got back, he took me and put me to work, and made me a fish culture assistant one for the province. So I worked as a fish culturist, and you work your way up to a 1, 2, 3 like that, eh? Mm-hmm. So in that days, they had to work for 35 years in order to qualify for a pension. So I told him, well, it's pretty long, but I'll try to do it. And I stuck with it for 5 years, and along came my. So I said, okay, and I ran for council of the band, and I was successful. I became a band counselor, so I started working with the people, learning about it, and the Indian Affairs wanted me to train as an administrator. So they said they'll pay me to work train in the Indian Affairs office, so I did. And I trained there, and 1972, I took over our band office, and I took over the administration, one of the first bands in Saskatchewan. We had took over our own administration, like today everybody has their own administration. Well, there was lots that didn't, they were still under Indian agents, so I took mine and qualified, so I took it, and from there on the band has good administration up to today.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. We're not, we never went into any third parties or anything like that you hear on the news. We were always had a unqualified audit, and we even went into like a about 12 years ago. We took over a new program. It was just like a global budget, you know. You just have all your money at one time, and you didn't have to be running around, and we took a 5-year agreement. So now that's the way the band's operating yet as of today. And Chief Alec Buffalo wanted me to take over a bus contract at a fort, and my wife was teaching, so I said, well, I'll better go and try, see what happens. And I had no idea what busing was like, and so I thought I'll try it, and I bought a bus.
So was your own money, or did the band buy it?
I bought it, yeah. I bought a bus, and my first bus, and I bid on it. It happened to be under economic development through the Indian Affairs, and the driver was from Pepixis, and he passed away. So they took back the bus because he didn't pay for it, and they wanted somebody else to buy it. So I bid on it, and I won the bid. So I took it over, and I got it safetied, and I figured, well, I'll drive it for a couple of years. So I did, and a couple of years kept adding on. It was 3-year contracts. I said, well, I'll take a contract. And my 3 years was up, and you want another 3 years? Yeah, okay, my bus is running good, so I'll do it. So I ran again, and then finally I bought another bus, and finally I bought a brand new bus in 92. It was brand new, and they were $98,000. But I bought one, and I ran that for about 6 years, and I gave it to my son-in-law, so he ran it for a year until his reserve, and on a contract. And then I bought another bus. They wanted a bigger bus because of the kids. He said there was going to be about 50 going to Fort Capel, so I bought a 54-passenger. So I started working with that. Well, in between that, I bought a 36, a 48, and I bought about 8 buses, I guess. It doesn't, you have to keep fixing them up and updating them. It's like a car, you upgrade them, because you put miles on them and a lot of rough roads. So that's what I've been doing, and today I'm a senator for FHQ. I was elected a senator by my chief and council, so I represent the Standing Buffalo Reserve. And each band has a senator, so we all have, each band has a senator, so we have a meeting. We're making our own, our guidelines, our Senate Act, and we don't like the word senator, so we're changing it to our traditional name, as a circle of, like a circle of elders,
Yeah.
But we're using a different name instead of using the Senate. But it's still pretty well like the same thing, yeah. And we help our people and the chief and council. They need Senate approval for different things, so we step in because we're all elderly and yeah, we're all about 70 years old. And you have 3 or 4 over here from the Okonees, Pepixis, Black Bear and all that. And we sit on the same committee over here. We're the Capel district. They're the File Hills. And we have a bigger district out this way. And we get one from Carra to Kettle. So that's where we're at today. And of course I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I do a lot of, traditional hide paintings. I paint on hides and I do winter counts and warrior stories. And I'm doing my own winter count of my life. So, but I'm only up to 50 years, I think. I was going to bring it and I didn't. I could have showed you.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah. It's a winter count and that's about it. Other than that, I don't know what else questions you want me to ask.
Got some questions about. So, who inspired you while you're growing up? Like, who was your inspirations? Like, was it
My parents? Who was what?
Your inspirations. Who inspired you?
Well, my dad was. He taught me a lot. And one thing, they had a lot of. There was a lot of bad feelings about residential school, but I didn't experience all that. I had mostly training from home. And I learned a lot from my grandparents, from my Lakota grandparents in Wood Mountain. And they told me a lot of history, and I learned a lot of history and how to grow up and be respectable. And my dad taught me how to work. That's why I worked all my life. I think it was my first job I had on a reserve, I had to give myself welfare because I didn't get paid for a month. And that was my last welfare check. So I never drew welfare all my life. I worked. I was a contractor. And I was a contractor, and I also was a counselor that I had on honorarium and per diem to keep me going all my life. So, but I had a hard start, like it wasn't soft, and I think that's where I gained their respect because they knew I can work, and I still am capable of doing things. And I helped the band and odds and ends and give them advice of what to do and all the kids I talked to. And my advice is to be, one of my stories my dad used to tell me was his grandfather, my great-grandfather, told him he used to go and wake him up and he used to use horses to do the farm. Yeah. He said, don't sleep in. He said, the only time you'll sleep is when you die. So my dad got up early one day and he said, okay, he said, he got up early and he said his grandpa wasn't gonna wake him up anymore. And this was the grandfather, this one. He used to wake him up early, and I used to sit on his knee. This is 5 generations from me back to my great-great-grandfather.
That's your great-great-grandfather?
Great, yeah. This is my grandfather. This is my great-grandfather, and this is my great-great-grandfather and grandmother. And this is that's his wife. And this is one of my uncles when he was little. He passed away now at the age of 86. But that's how small he was that time. This is taken way back in the early days. And they only had one brother, so they're on this side. And it might have been in the 20s. Yeah, early 20s. one of the things what was the last question?
Like who
Oh, yes,
inspired
yeah.
you? Was it-
Yes, there's all of my relatives. You know, they all the traditional way they're teachers, like your
So-
parents and your grandparents.
Yeah.
This is what a lot of people don't have nowadays, and especially if you don't speak the language and understand the language, it makes it tough. So even like, for instance, like your grandparents be the ones to inspire you and teach you a lot of stuff. It's always nice to go to grandpa's and,
Is it?
you can go and do certain things today, but in our days, like we learned storytelling. My grandfather used to say, we tell you all these things once and that's it. We're not going to be telling you over and over. So we learned, we were good listeners in the early days. And when you said, you said, life is tough, he said, so you got to be careful and, make good judgments, and that's what we try to do.
So who taught you about your traditional, like your buffalo hide paintings? Was that your grandparents?
The buffalo hide painting was my grandparents, and I went to Paris, and I went to Museum of Men, and I seen all these buffalo robes hanging up, and I was looking at them, and I said, this could be a story, a person told. And people are listening to me, and I said, I heard of my grandpa and him tell about these stories and they'd paint the war stories of the Custer's battle, and Lakotas were famous of doing hide paintings. They recorded hide paintings, on a hide, paintings on a hide, on the rocks. Rocks were... there's effigies and all these effigies and rock formation piles and all these things are all on the southern Saskatchewan over here. So we used to go visit them, and they're all sacred meanings to our people. So they taught me how to, in my language, to respect all these things, be respectful and all that, and I learned that.
So, what do you do to pass down your knowledge to the younger generations?
What do I do?
Yeah, do you like your traditions?
I
just
was
general knowledge?
professional dancer, and a lot of people respect me for that because I won many championships. I went to Europe, and my brothers persuaded them to dance. And my grandfather here was a real good traditional singer, and my dad was a singer, and my uncles. So they all learned to sing, and they taught us how to sing and dance. So we learned all those things. And my mother was a professional bead.
Yeah.
They made all these beautiful work, like this. So she made all my costume. And in the early days, it wasn't just money or anything. We used to go around enjoying ourselves, and if we won, we represented our reserve. So there was a lot of champions that came out of good dancers that came out of in the contests that came from Standing Buffalo. And I think I was one of the role models, along with my cousin. Him and I danced together all our lives till he passed away, and he's the middle guy here. This is me. We were in Labret school. So him and I, we did three of us all danced until my cousin passed away, and I had an old favorite grandfather that was fought in the Louis Riel War, the rebellion.
Yeah.
And he gave me, he was a warrior, so usually warriors give names to children. So my mother got him to give me a First Nation name. and his name was Tom Whiteman. And here he is. He fought in the Real Rebellion. And during the battle, they were running out of ammunition, so he said, well, I'm going to quit. So he took his war bonnet off and he gave it to a young man to carry on to fight against the RCMP. So he quit and he came and he lived down in Standing Buffalo till he died. And he was just 16 or so when he was in a battle. And then when he died, he was about 97. So he's pretty old here. Well, and he smoked all his life. He had a cigarette in his mouth, I always remember. Yeah. So our elders were the ones that teach the youth, and if you don't respect elders and you don't want to listen to them, well, you're going to be losing all this culture and the traditional knowledge that they hand out, and our spiritual values, traditions, culture. All those things would be lost. So I'll always say, try to keep them. Speak to somebody. If you don't have a grandparents, talk to elders. Are willing to help, Even in school, like we go around and talk to kids and tell them little stories and stuff. But they don't know how bad it was or how hard our people had life. Their life was in early days. I'd say even 50 years ago was tough. From there on in 30s and all that, they try to farm and everything. Times were really tough. I was born in a log cabin, and they don't understand all that,
Yeah.
They think we have good houses and everything and schools, and, we didn't have all that.
Okay. So yeah, I think. So how do you protect your culture from becoming lost?
Well, we try to teach it. Like what I say, I teach my grandchildren and my children. They all become dancers and respect their religion, to respect the religion, and usually it's combined with these. Here's my son. He's a dancer with my grandson and my two nephews. They all dance the grass dance, and they dance all over the United States and Canada. And my granddaughters and sisters, they all respect the old ways, and they all make their own costumes and do a lot of dancing, go around dancing and making friends. And that's what, most of all, try to retain your language. So right now we're developing a video machine that you just open it up and you put on the thing and it'll say Dakota language, and with Wayne Goodwill on there, and I do 500 words, and you can press animals and all the animals will come on, on the screen. So you press horse and the English word will say horse, and Dakota would say shunka waka, and then it'll say it twice, shunka waka, and then there's dog, shunka, and like that. Yeah. So we did 500 words like that for the schools. So now they're going to use these computers and teaching kids how to speak languages, all their animals, porcupines, whatever, and relatives, the body.
Yeah.
The body is important, hands, elbows, your shoulders, your neck, face, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. The kids like to learn all this.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, knees, legs, feet, toes.
So you think you'll be able to teach all the kids, or most of the kids, to pass it on?
Well, we have teachers. I don't. I go and talk to them and just a bit, and they wanted me to go to university and do some classes, but I don't know. I haven't went yet, or nobody spoke to me. They got a couple of younger girls that are going.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that the boys are learning the right way, because we have two languages, the men way and the women way, in our culture,
Yeah.
in the Sioux culture. Yeah, anyway, it is tough. I just came from a conference in 48th, North Dakota. That's about 100 miles south of Bismarck, North Dakota. And there's a big college there. It's called a Sitting Bull College. Well, they do a lot of cultural speaking, besides all your knowledge you're going to get for economic development. To be a teacher or whatever, all these different things, social works and all that. We're learning, at the same time you get a credit for all your language and your traditional knowledge that you learned. They do sweats, and if you ever heard of those, it's part of the culture. And we got 7 sacred rites in our tradition, so they try to learn each one, separately at a certain time, and all these should be respected. It's just like 10 Commandments, in church. So I always say, well, respect all those things, your language, your religion. Doesn't matter what religion is, we all pray to the same Creator, in our life, but only in a different way. And our way is better. Well, that's the way we feel.
Yeah.
And if I go to a church, I went to a church when I was young, and it was all in Latin, so I don't know what they're saying, in a Catholic church. And then the Bible, I was smart. I got high marks for Bible in school. And even yet, I watch TV, and they have these contests for religion, and I answer some of those questions. This guy is good. And I never read a Bible right through, just by listening. What the teachers taught us, that's what we learned to do a long time ago, is listen. Be good listeners, and that's the way we learned. We got our knowledge from listening. That's why my grandfather used to say, teach you, we'll tell you once, and we're not going to tell you again, so you have to pay attention. If you don't, well, you're going to miss it. Even when you go to school here, the teacher is trying to teach you math or some geometry, and you don't get it right, you'll never get the answer. It could be this long, but you'll never make it. I hated geometry. That's why I picked that one. I couldn't understand it for a month. Finally, I had to go one-on-one, and when I went back to Regina, I took 10 and 11, upgrading, and I couldn't get that. Finally, we got it, and today I don't even know why we even took it. But I guess it's useful in some way. I don't see anybody saying, well, we got to do geometry to solve this problem. I never hear anybody say that. But yet you do it, eh?
I don't know either. Yeah, I think the same thing sometimes. Is there anything else that you want to?
No, I like you have this design here. And what kind of room is this? Cultural room?
I think they call it the culture room. It's just, they have meetings and...
Us two use pretty near the same colors, but we use black instead of blue. And the blue we use, and which way is west? This way?
I gotta think.
I don't know which way I'm facing.
I think that's west. No, that's east.
No, east. This has got to be west. Well, our west would be black because of the sun, the darkness.
Oh, yeah.
The night makes black. And the north, well, of course, is snow. White is right. And yellow is the sun rises.
The east.
Yeah, and red is the south for us. It's a land of represents the desert, all kind of red. So that's why we picked that way. But everybody has their colors. I noticed some have different colors and different corners.
So this would be Cree then?
Yeah, in the middle.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where the eagle will fly through. Yeah, I see some of these guys all on the board here. I know them all pretty near.
Yeah.
Except the young guys.
It's kind of what we're gonna do, or what I'm gonna do with you, I think.
Oh.
Make you a poster.
Perron. You have no star blanket up there? No?
You might be chief. Although we got different ones around the school that you can go look at once you're done.
So anyway, I thought I'll help with that.
Yeah.
And right now we're doing I'm doing a lot of work with the band. We're doing our election act, and then with the Treaty 4 we're doing our Senate act. So we're just trying to get all these together now, and hopefully in a couple of years or whenever they have election or the Senate has to refer to the Senate Act, we'll have it all done up. As I say, they don't like the word Senate, so they're changing it, and so is Standing Buffalo. They want to call it in our own way, you know. It's above the chiefs, a circle of like chiefs, the Senate. And they all have their own opinion, so that's what they want to be called or something. So I said, yeah, we'll call ourselves that. And then make it known, like put it out in the school so they know who they are. Eh?
Yeah.
So what else you got?
I think I'm ready.
You're done?
I'm done, unless you got anything else to say.
Well, yeah, I always, when I spoke to the universities and that, I always say that learn to respect your elders and always be a good listener, as I mentioned a lot of times, and learn to get along with other people, other races, everybody, and always be reliable, you know, be a reliable person. And never, don't be a cheater.
Yeah.
And those things are strong words, but words of advice, but that's what it takes to, you know, to be a good person. And always have respect for one another, and they'll have respect for you, you know. If you don't respect one guy, they're not going to get that same favor back, you know. So if they know you're respectful, you know, I have a lot of friends because I respect them. So when I go to town, you know, they treat me like I'm a mayor. You know, that kind of respect we have for each other. I say good morning to them, and even the elderly ladies that come to the coffee shop, they all greet me in the morning and ask me how is my roads and everything, you know. So I enjoy that every day.